Hey guys, we're back with another episode of the On Season. We're glad to be hanging out with you guys tonight. We're always with you guys live on YouTube. And next, will come on over, hit that little bell and like button, help support us here on the On Season. Myself and Jason tonight are going to be breaking down free agency. Legal tampering window begins on Monday at noon. That's where teams can start negotiating. And to be quite honest, most of the big deals are probably done by the time the league new year opens on Wednesday. The Dolphins also were in the news, restructured a player. We'll talk about the Bradley Chubb. And also, we're going to get into the edge group. I know it's a position, even with Chubb coming back, there's injuries at the position. Chubb missed all of last year. Phillips had another significant lower body injury, so I wouldn't count that position out. We're going to break that group down, and we're going to preview the free agency, break some free agency position groups we think are important, players we think the Dolphins would target. Let me shut up now and bring in my partner in crime, Jason Sarney. Jason, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing well, George. I hope you're doing well as well, and everyone out there.
Yeah. Again, thanks for everyone for joining. Jason, Chubb is back with the Dolphins. Brought the number down to a lower number where the Dolphins and him could stomach. They're about $9 million over the cap as we speak right now. There's going to be some work to do before we get to the new league year opens on Wednesday. Your thoughts on the Chubb stuff and kind of this free agency wave here we got coming up?
Listen, I mean, he missed an entire year, but I think that he's going to come back chomping at the bit, knowing that there's the incentive-based package now with how he has to, earn what he, actually gets paid with the incentive now restructure of the contract. His leadership and being shown on the field when he is on the field, of course, and now as a free agent that still resigns, or I'm sorry, as someone who restructures, it's letting that leadership start shine through. So he's a good guy to keep in. And of course, if he plays up to, as close to full capacity, he was a year removed from having a fantastic season. If he only wasn't on the field for too many snaps against that Baltimore Ravens debacle, he never would have gotten hurt. But what could you do? And I am glad that they are retaining him, especially with the financial savings.
Yeah, look at the position now. We got, obviously, Chop. We have the two guys coming back from injury. Cameron Good, they brought him back, right?
Yeah.
They brought him back.
He gave him a tenure.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's good on special teams. I've always liked Cameron Good. So, look, I wouldn't rule it out in the draft. It's a good group. We're going to take a look at him a little later in the show. And it's a group with some upside and some guys I think will complement Chop actually pretty well. Shout out to Evan Finstanza. I had him on the show. Thank you, my man. How you doing, Sonny? I got this. Yeah, I got a new Expos hat today. You, him, and Alan Poupard, huh?
Love Expos stuff. Love him.
All right. So let's Monday's the legal tampering period. We made a list of some players we like. Again, not necessarily the players they're going to sign, but some guys we think they should target. Let's start there. Let's go on to the offensive linemen. Let's start at the top here. Will Fries, Aaron Bakes, Becton, Patrick McCarry, James Daniels, and Evan Brown. 6 guys that we thought really should focus on. We'll start at the top with Will Fries. I mean, a young ascending player. And I want to start by saying this. When you have in free agency, what's gold is draft pedigree and age. When both of those things are on your side, it's going to cost money to get that player. Draft pedigree meaning when he was a high pick, or an age meaning when you're in the prime of your career, you're 25, 26, and 27. And I also want to repeat, we mentioned this before, Jason. Chris Greer loves these guys coming on getting in their second contract. So this year you would look at the 20 draft for guys who were in the first round and the 21 draft for guys who were second round and beyond. Those are the guys you'd be looking at. At the top, Will Fries, again, one of the best young guards in football, was really coming on for Indianapolis. I believe week 5, he broke his femur or his fibula and really took a hit for the Indianapolis offensive line. He's going to be a high price. He's probably the guy on this list that's going to cost you the most. Again, the range we got going on here is just a little bit off sports track, a little bit off, we think, the market value. If it's 2 or 3 million plus or minus, don't kill us. It could happen. but this is just a range to give you guys kind of an idea what the free agent market could look like and the price for these guys. But yeah, Will Fries, Jason, probably at the top of the list. Do you think they're definitely going to hit this spot? I think this is the one we can most confidently say they're going to attack in free agency. Do you see Will Fries? Will they go that high, do you think? I mean, in that 15, 16, maybe even 17 million at that interior offensive line position?
In this case, he hasn't shown consistency in playing full seasons, maybe only one under his belt. And of course, coming off of a 5-game run, I don't think that's a proper price tag for it. Everyone wants to address the offensive line in the draft, and I think they absolutely do, unless they really can hammer out a purebred guard. I mean, he played tackle, he could play guard. He played guard last season, of course. So I would like if they spend money like that to be on kind of not a jack of all trades, but like kind of like a master at one position, So I would pass on Fries, all things considered.
Yeah. I just think, again, the age, how well he was playing, he's one of the highest rated. I think he was like the 4th rated guard from PFF. Whatever you think of those numbers, they mean something. Again, that's just for me is a part of the process to evaluate a player. You just use it as a small sample size of a part of the pie. And he was like the 4th ranked guard, and he's 26 years old or 27. He's going to get paid. He's quick. He's rarely technically sound, and he's quick. He's not a mauler in the run game. He fits the outside zone scheme perfectly. He's probably their number one target. If they had a dream, they could get if they had the money for this guy. But yeah, I think he fits perfectly in the age. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they spend money on this group. All right, the next guy, very simple. Aaron Banks, 49ers. Jason, McDaniel was there when they drafted him. He started 43 games straight for at guard for the 49ers. He knows the system. There's not much else to say here. He fits like a glove. I'm sure this is one of the guys they're targeting, and he has familiarity with McDaniels. I think McDaniels probably has a good idea because they probably know people in the background here, a good idea what he's going to cost and if there's a chance here. I think this might be one of the guys they're talking about here, Aaron Banks.
This could be a solid fit because the familiarity, of course, he's, coming off of, I think they had 1 year together, right before McDaniel came to the Dolphins. But if you look for reasons why a player should sign and there's a coaching staff and system in place that there's familiarity with, Banks would make sense playing some left guard. So you also have to look at the Dolphins in the free agency guard realm also. They have a lot of players from last year who they may or may not re-sign in the guard position. So I think a purebred guard is someone who could very easily plug and play in that area. Banks, so I would put Banks ahead of Fries.
Yeah, I think if you were looking at the list, who do I think is more likely to sign? I think Banks is right at the top. It makes too much sense. Becton, he's kind of my guy that I've been kind of fantasizing with. We've talked about it before. A guy who obviously was a high first-round pick with the Jets, got with the Eagles, moved inside, his career took off. And the one thing people say, he's a big mauler. He's athletic enough for the outside zone run. They ran some of that in Philly, okay? And he's shown that he can get out there and he can move. He's a good athlete. He ran well at the combine. He's 6'7", 340. He brings size, physicality. He's an upside. I think if you look, who can be the best player out of this group in 2 or 3 years, or who could be like a guy off your roster in 2 or 3 years, I think you're looking at Becton. Can he have success outside Philly? I think that's the question. And what's his price tag? Again, age and draft pedigree here. Going to cost you 10 to 12 million. I think it could even be a little north of that. How are you feeling about Becton? Do you think he's a scheme fit?
Not necessarily. I mean, I love Becton. I love the potential of him being like a revenge pick because he was a Jet top 10, top 11 pick, whatever it was. But he fits so well in Philly because of what they do, especially with that tush push and with Saquon. He was a perfect fit there. For Miami, I mean, a lot of people were like, all right, certain height, 6'7", too tall to move inside a guard. So I don't know if that's true or not per se, but I would be a little weary if Becton can pull, 17 games at guard in Miami. I mean, it would be, I'd be happy at the signing, but there'd be trepidation. I'm like, all right, is this going to work? I don't know. Because there's not a ton of money to spend.
Yeah. So you got to pick. Evan makes a great point. He's not playing in Philadelphia, where it's cold in the heat. Can he handle that? So that's a great point. He's the kind of one that would excite me the most. The potential I think McDaniel can use with him, but yeah, I don't know how likely it is. The next guy here is Patrick McCarty. He's kind of was like do it all for Baltimore. A lot of experience in either system, gap power system or zone. I mean, they ran a ton of outside zone with Derrick Henry. This is the one guy who doesn't have as much injury history. He's real solid, can play throughout the line, but you plug him in at guard, he'll probably be in that $10 to $12 million range. He's a solid, safe signing. Again, Anthony Weaver's familiar with this guy with his time in Baltimore. What are your thoughts on McCarry?
Yeah, I bring at that price tag, I would be better than Fries for sure. And you come from that tough-minded Baltimore team. You need kind of that. You need a player who can come from that rush-heavy or just battle-tested, tough-minded football. I think the Dolphins need a couple of dogs like that.
Yeah, he's the safest one here for me. A lot of these guys come from some injury history. All right. The one I think fits perfectly, and like if it works out, he could sneak in a couple Pro Bowls down here in Miami. That's James Daniels. But man, he had a devastating Achilles injury last year, early in the season. The question is the medical on this guy. But he's gotten better every year. I think if they sign James Daniels and it works out, again, I know everybody's going to be scared of the injury. I think this guy in this system is perfect, like a glove, and you're looking at a guy who can play at a Pro Bowl level in this system. I've always loved James Daniels. The injury concerns me, but do you agree with me that he fits like perfectly with McDaniel in the scheme?
I would agree there too, and I think that he's not necessarily a guy you could rely on for a full healthy season. Of course, as recently as proved, but I'd roll the dice on him. I mean, if it's a decent price tag, I would third time's the charm on his third squad coming up, and there's a good chance that he can fit. But
yeah, I mean, if
it's James Daniels or drafting, I would go drafting, and that's just no knock. That would just be my.
But what about both? What if it's James Daniels and a draft pick? Because his price tag's going to come in a little lower because of the injury. The medicals are going to be – I would need to know the medicals first on James Daniels.
It's typical Greer, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe he could save a buck on the medicals, but,
But I'll tell you, Jason, I don't have as much problem in free agency swinging on the medicals because it's not much to pick from. The draft is where I have the problem. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Yeah. And honestly, these guys are going to have some medical history, or else they wouldn't be available at 25, 26, 27 years old.
They'd be locked up with their own
team. Yeah, they'd be locked up, yeah. Unless you're the Dolphins and Robert Hunt, that's enough. But I think McCarry is the safest one of this group. I don't know if he's quite the upside of these other guys, but he's the one plays hard, is rugged, has experience in all schemes. He's really been putting a lot of plugs in holes for the Ravens. He's kind of been their Band-Aid guy for the Ravens the last few years. All right, another guy I didn't put on here is Tevin Jenkins. I want to get to him now because I actually forgot to put him on the list, if I'm being honest, because he's another guy that I like. But he's drafted as a tackle in Chicago. I know Dolphin fans probably remember he's a guy we all kind of wanted in the draft. He was a high second-round pick for Chicago, I think in 38, 39, around there. Struggled at tackle, moved him in at guard, and his career just took off. But, again, struggles to stay healthy and just nagging injuries, struggle. But he's young, he's physical, he's talented. His best football's ahead. He's an ascending player with injury concerns. He's going to cost you net probably same as Becton. Yeah, same as Becton and Banks. Tevin Jenkins, one of my favorites. I think he's a guy they actually could be looking at. He fits what Greer likes. And I actually just forgot to put him on the list, if I'm being completely honest with the listeners. But, yeah, what are your thoughts on Tevin Jenkins before we get to Evan Brown?
A couple of months ago, I mentioned that he would be a great guy. Yeah. And I was actually, I'm going to track this guy because I think that 10 million, 11 million would be fine. He was the first, a lot of people were thinking first, second round for him a couple of years ago for the Dolphins. But, health is an issue. Of course, was mentioned with some of the other players, but he's a guy who I think for a second go around, I think he can fit in Miami.
Yeah, I agree. Now to more of a kind of cost cutting kind of. We're going into the Dollar Tree, the bargain bin, a little bit shopping here with Evan Brown. Evan Brown actually was a Dolphin in 2019. Right, started at center, played center a lot through his career. Then last 2 years, he started 17 games for the Bengals. And I think 16 was it? I had it down here with the Arizona. No, 17 games for Arizona, and then 23 he started 16 games for the Cincinnati Bengals at guard. He's really athletic. The Dolphins liked him at one point in 19. Obviously, and the scouting department's pretty much still there, so they like something about him. I think we're looking at the wrong guard in Arizona. Everybody's looking at Will Hernandez. I think Evan Brown is a better scheme fit. It's about 6'3", 320, has some size. He's athletic. Will fit the scheme with no issue. I think everybody's talking about Will Hernandez, who they do have interest in, but I'm actually looking at the guard over there on the other side in Evan Brown. And if you can get him for $5-6 million, I'm fine with me.
I think like for a depth play like that at that price, sure, but to pencil him in as one of the starting five, don't know if there's extreme confidence in that. Journeyman guy. I get he has the familiarity and the experience with Miami, but if they do that and then draft a guard, you re-sign Rob Jones, who I think would be the only guy that they should re-sign, not Liam. No,
please no.
Definitely not Liam.
But I just learned we could get a good compensatory pick for Eichenberg and Jones actually, because they started pretty much the whole season.
Let's see how that shakes out. But I wouldn't put.
I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah,
but let's say they do this, right? Let's say they sign Banks and Brown, and it comes in $16 million for both. You know what I mean? And then you go draft a guy in the second round, Tate Rutledge.
That does feel very Greer-ish.
Yeah. Of these guys,
familiarity, saving a buck,
Of these guys, Jason, if I say, give me two you would like, one you would like with Evan Brown.
I'll stick to my guns and say Jenkins. Sorry that it was like off list, but
no, that's my fault. I actually had him on, and for some reason,
if it is Jenkins, I do want to.
Yeah, Jenkins, guys, just put an imaginary black Tavon Jenkins. We'll update it again. All right,
exactly.
So we agree. They're targeting this group. Do you think they sign two guys? Maybe not just look. And there's more guys we can get into, and we'll get into that. I'll be live on Monday. Reacting to some of the signings and all that. But there's more guys. But these are just kind of the guys that we thought kind of going on the MO of Greer. You think they'll go two out of this group, or not just this group, but the offensive line?
I mean, there's not a ton of money. Obviously, they're going to do things with releasing, and they're going to restructure. There's going to be money that gets kind of found under the couch cushions. But I don't see a parade of players marching through the door. They have 10 draft picks, which is nice. Now, years that they've had 4 or 5 and they've been vacant in top-end rounds, those are the years to spend really heavy and bring a number of players from various positions, maybe multiple. But with a couple of players to re-sign, like the amount of draft picks, I think there will be a fewer than usual free agent signings. So to say 2 from this list, I don't know. But if I had to pick one, I'd go Jenkins. If I had to go 1A, I'd go McCarry.
Yeah, I agree. I think McCarry's, again, the safest out of the group. But Jenkins, I'm a big fan of his. I just stay healthy. But again, I'm not as worried when it comes to free agency because the list, there's not much to choose from. And they got to open up some other money. There's going to be some things they're going to have to push that credit card bill down the line, like you said, Jason, like you always talk about, to free up the money because they're only about $9 million. And again, they can sign a guy for $8 million a year, but that first year cap hit could be like 1.5 or 2.5. So they can play with it. Yeah,
they can play with it, but you can't spend like a drunken sailor like of years past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Jimmy John when there was no salary cap. All right, let's move on to another position of need: the safeties. Take a look at this list. You tell me what you think. I got my guy out of this list. I'll save him. You go first.
Moehrig was a guy who I mocked that the Dolphins would draft before even Holland. I like Moehrig coming out of school, so I'd be kind of pleasantly surprised and happy. They need safeties, the Dolphins. Like one of these guys on this list, Hufanga just got released. One of these guys would make a lot of sense because the Dolphins, if you close your eyes and think about it, really don't have any safety right now.
Yeah.
You're going to lose Javon Holland. You're not bringing back Jordan Poyer. Elijah Campbell is a guy that I would love to be like the third safety on this team or even try to start, but he's probably going to try to get his bag somewhere else because he wants to play safety as well as being an elite special teamer. So Moehrig, I would be all aboard.
Oh, he was a high, again, remember we talked about, look at the 20 and 21 draft. You're going to see a lot of these guys.
Everyone knew the Dolphins were drafting safety in 2021 with Holland. And these guys are the ones that, they were on my board, Richie Grant was a guy who was on my board, mid-rounds, you know what I mean? Central Florida kid. So
good point, Evan. McMorris, I like what I saw at him in preseason. I did. Patrick McMorris, he surprised me. I knew nothing about him coming out. Right?
When best case scenario, McMorris, you pencil in as the 2. If he's healthy, you still need a dog. You still need a one guy.
And he's a heck of a special teams player too. So McMorris. All right. So Moehrig, got better. He's getting better every year. He's a hell of a blitzer for a safety, physical tackler, good in coverage, good size, 6'2", 202. Again, draft pedigree and age is on his side, so he's going to cost. But he's an ascending player. You like to see these guys get better. I'm not sure. I don't think the Raiders are going to keep him. I think they'd like to, but that price for the Oakland, he's going to get right where around what Javon Holland's going to get, right? I would think in that range. I've heard Javon Holland's going to get north of $15 million.
He's going to get a bag, and that's like not saying he deserves it or doesn't deserve it, which there's arguments to say that he does, but he has the people that are going to get the job done for him. They've just proven it time and time again. There's a team that's going to put the money out there, and he's going to take the dollar amount. It's literally math. It's academic.
Teams with a lot of cap space are going to look for the guys that are younger and were high draft picks. Again, we're going to keep mentioning that because it's important. When you have the $100 million in cap space or 80 or 90, you're not going to go get the 33, 34-year-old players, guys. Those guys might be bigger names, but they're not going to cost as much because they're at their end of their career. So there's other things that go into when you're doing the market value of a player. Yeah, so Moehrig would be at the top. I think a guy they would love, but I don't know wouldn't you have just signed Holland? Or I like him better than Holland actually, but I don't know if they're going to go that price range at the safety position. I wouldn't do it. There's 2 guys on this list that I'm going for. We're not there yet. All right. You know one of them already. You know one of them.
Now the thing is, if now to preface all this, with the draft coming up, free agency is obviously going to dictate draft. So if they spend $15, $20 million on a safety, that might take your Malachi Starks or your Nick Emenwaris off the table, which
completely takes him off the table.
100%. Yeah, so a lot could happen, even if it's 1 or 2 signings. If they spend heavy dollar amounts on a safety or a corner, that's going to affect the draft clearly because we'll get into corners in a bit. But go on.
The next guy, the San Francisco 49er, another Mike McDaniel connection. Hufanga, he's a reckless player. And he gets hurt being reckless. He's one of these high octane. I would like the demeanor and the attitude he would bring to the defense, if I'm being honest. But he's always hurt because he puts his body out there. Do you see him as a scheme fit here? And with Anthony Weaver as the kind of guy you put him, I guess we always look when we talk safeties, who's the Kyle Hamilton for the Dolphins, right? I feel like
those are hard to find. That could be Nick Emenwari, or Starks. But no, Hufanga, I can't necessarily think he would be tagged as that kind of chess piece player, as good as Hamilton. Can't put him on that pedestal. Right. And again, consistency. Where's the 1 full season in his career? The reckless. Your best ability is the availability to be on the field. You know what I'm saying? So, nice. So he's available, but do they want to pass on him and stick to another player healthier or go to the draft? Those could be better options.
All right, my guy,
The floor is yours.
Hey, I'm begging the table. I'm begging the table here. All right, I'm putting myself out there. You know, I've liked Andre Cisco. I loved Andre Cisco coming out of Syracuse. Oh, and he's everything I thought he'd be as a ball hawk, instinctive player. Look, he has 8 interceptions and 11 pass breakups in the last 3 years, and he had a bad season last year. But let me tell you something. That Jacksonville situation was dysfunctional. I think this guy needs a fresh start. Gets out of there. You sign him. I think, again, I didn't think he was going to cost this much, but I was looking around. He's going to be in that $10 million a year range. Maybe he wants to take a show me deal for 1 year. But if you can do like a 2 for 18 or 2 for 20, I love this guy, man. What does this defense need? They don't create turnovers. He creates turnovers. He was ascending. Then 24 was a bad year for him. But again, Jacksonville was a mess. I just had such a strong conviction him coming out of college. I see him on the table. I could just see Chris Greer liking this guy. He's one of 2 guys on this list that I would want. I'm a big fan. You know that.
Dolphins do need turnovers. You know, he's got, 10 picks. He's got a couple of fumble recoveries, forced fumbles. He does kind of, smell that ball. So, yeah, Dolphins definitely need to turn that ball over and win the
and for me, I think he could end up being the best value out of this group.
I like the value there, too.
Yeah, on Cisco. Okay, Julian Blackmon is a guy probably a tad less. He's played everywhere for the Colts. In 23, he was more of an inbox guy. 24, they had him playing that more rangier, that high safety, even some single high. So he showed his versatility. He's relatively young. He has good size. I think the shoulder injury kind of put him more getting away from the box. I think he's going to be more of a free safety going forward. If you could get him at $8 million a year, I think he's somebody to keep an eye on. I think these the Cisco, Blackmon, and the next guy I talk about, I think there's a good shot. If they're going to go for safety, one of these 3 are Dolphin. But yeah, Julian Blackmon, fan of him. 3rd round pick in 2020, only 26.
Yeah, he'd work in that value as well. That would be a good price tag, knowing that you could stick with the draft and getting in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round, and then Blackmon would be, he could maybe be a player with upside, almost like a Deshaun Elliott was a couple of years ago. But if you give him a 1 year deal, you got to keep.
And the versatility is key, man. He's played in the box. He can play. He's done it both. So keep an eye on him. My next guy after Cisco is Jeremy Chin, another guy I love coming out. Do you remember Jeremy Chin coming out?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Came from Carolina. He was drafted by Carolina High. Now in Washington last year, kind of
small school guy.
Yeah. Turned his career on. He's big. He's a hybrid. He's kind of that M.N. Worry size, 6'3", 220, can play in the box as a linebacker, but really improved his coverage skills this year, okay, with Washington, which is going to get him a multi-year deal. I like him. I think his best football is ahead. I think he unlocked some things with the Redskins last year. A 6'3", 220-pound safety that can come in the box and cover. What's not to like?
That's what the Dolphins definitely need, and that's the kind of safeties I like. So, yeah, I would welcome him.
Yeah, and
that price tag as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is with him is it's like that'll take you off on the MN Worry. Maybe you still go a Starks because he's not going to be the 10, 12, 13.
Similar size. I mean, similar build with Chin and MN Worry. You might want to pick your poison there.
We had and Evan in here. We had one of those guys once, Brandon Jones.
It's amazing.
Another guy we let go away.
Jones, I would have loved to have retained. I loved his ability to play almost like a linebacker who is improving in coverage, and he was improving in coverage, and had a great year in Denver. So
again, we're here on the on-season, breaking down and previewing the free agency and the edge rushers. Guys, hit that bell. It takes a second. Subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up. I know we ask and we have to ask, but it just takes real quick. Click the bell, help support the channel. All right, that's a safety group, a group we think they need 2 starters. I think this is a group that could dip in free agency and in the draft as well. You would agree with that, Jason?
That would be a very wise move, knowing that they could literally have Patrick McMorris as the room pretty much right now.
Yeah, true. Okay, corners. I'll let you
start off. No knock on Patrick McMorris, but you need multiple safeties, clearly.
If he's your 3rd or 4th safety, great. Right. Because we haven't seen it yet. All right, I'll let you start off with the corner group. Brian Murphy, You saw a report today that Dolphins could be interested in him.
No, I mean, you get a lot of rumors out there. You get
Yeah.
a lot of accounts. It said that, PFN is projecting that Byron Murphy could be in the Dolphins' minds. Now, look, I do think that Chris Greer is going to bring in a prime time cornerback. If you look at what they're going to spend the most money on in free agency, it is the pattern of Greer to pair his cornerbacks. He's done it every year the last 5 years. So with the, it didn't work out with Kendall Fuller. You release him. They need a running mate for Jalen Ramsey. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be re-signing Kader Kohu, I believe he's a free agent, or if it's or a restricted free agent, or have Storm Duck. But to bring in a guy like Murphy would actually be Greer MO. To any of the guys on this list,
there's
trade. Even if
trade
there's
is a big one too.
If there's a trade out there for a guy, even if it's a guy with an injury history, if a big name with potential is on the market and dangled for Chris Greer, whether it's signing a Murphy, coming off a Pro Bowl year, he's going to be warranting the money. But I think you're definitely going to want to get Murphy.
I'm not a fan of.
I was just going, I'm just naming just in depth.
No. I wouldn't. I think you're buying high on him. I wouldn't spend, and he's going to get potentially 17 to 20 million or 18 to 20 million a year. I think you're buying high a little bit. Another guy, big play Slay. Yeah, he guy who just got released. Those are other guys. There's other avenues, and these are just the UFA guys. We're just going through the kind of going by the book here with the UFA guys. But Brian Murphy's at the top of the list. Chris Greer's MO, man. He loves to have two corners, whether it's coming from the draft or spending high and big money in free agency. I think if they're going to spend big, it's going to be at this position. There's going to be a couple of guys in the draft, but Brian Murphy, let's get to another guy, Travarius Ward, who again, I bring in the San Francisco connection. Travarius came off a big 23, right? What happened last year? He had a down year, and some of it, he had one thing I was reading about him is kind of his daughter passed away, a tragic situation. I don't know if you remember that. And then when I was reading about it, it came back to my mind. And, I think it kind of, people are saying kind of affected, of course, it would affect anybody. And he kind of wants to get out of there and have a fresh start. But he was an all-pro level in 23, big corner. Maybe you could shave a little bit off because of the down year. At 15, I think he's more realistic than Murphy. If you can get him for 15, maybe the cap hit, you do some wiggling and the cap hit's not huge year one. I could see Travarius Ward being a Miami Dolphin, Jason.
You're right. A couple of years ago, he had a phenomenal year. Quarterback rating against it was like 60 some odd. 20 plus passes defended. So he could be a ball hawk. He has that absolute ability. And if you look at Ward, Ramsey, and then you sprinkle in some of those other cornerbacks that could be nickel and depth cornerbacks, and all of a sudden you're looking at a very viable secondary when you're looking at those corners for the Dolphins. But Ward is definitely a guy who wanted to bounce back.
And last year, he allowed 5 touchdowns. He allowed a passer rating of 119. Very uncharacteristic of him. But again, I think he's around 29. So I know he went through some tough situation, but could it be that he's starting to lose a little bit of step? I mean, he's one of these guys that you could, like Kendall Fuller, you could surprise. Maybe you get him on a decent deal, on a 2-year deal, and you're surprised that you got him for 12 or something like that. You just never know, right? A guy like this just looking for a fresh start. Maybe winning means, maybe other things mean more to him than just the money. You kind of get a feel with this kind of guy. All right, Asante Samuel Jr.
Bring him home. Right?
Bring him home.
Bring him home, right?
Enough said, right? Again, 25 years old. Really had a strong year. Again, another guy. A lot of these guys, a strong year in 23, down year in 24. He's going to cost. We mentioned draft pedigree and age again. It's a common theme. He's the definition of that. Tackling's been an issue, and man coverage has been an issue. Press man has been an issue. Do you think he'll fit here? He's on the smaller side. Of course, his dad was a great player. I would roll the dice if I can get him at $11 million a year at 25 years old. He's an instinctive player, another guy who creates turnovers. I loved him coming out. I wanted them to draft him. I like these kind of players in free agency, and so does Chris Greer. Asante Samuel Jr., Jason.
Probably the biggest upside, if you could just long
I
term it.
agree.
So I like Murphy, I like Ward, but upside wise, and who could like actually best bang for the buck potential. Yeah, draft pedigree, real pedigree, good economics behind it potentially.
But he was injured. Like he got hurt week 6, a shoulder injury. I think he was canned for the rest of the year. But he was ascending. And again, another guy coming off injury. Maybe if he played a full year, he wouldn't be available. Because he was a corner with the area up. I agree with you. The upside with this kid is pretty good. All right. Paulson Adebo is a guy I really love. He has tantalizing numbers. 23, I think he had 4 picks. And before he got hurt, again, another guy who got hurt, had it written down when he got hurt. He got hurt I can't find it, but week 7, I think he got hurt. 3 picks already that year. He was tied with their safety. His name escapes me. This, popular safety. 3 picks. He had 4 the year before. Really good corner. That the numbers are good, like the PFF numbers, everything checks out with him. Just the injury. Boy, another guy, long cover corner, 11 and 12 million. I'd take the chance there. I think he has as much. You said Asante Samuel. I think this kid has as much upside for the Saints. He played with New Orleans.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, in that Chris Greer MO, maybe you try to save a buck on that injury, coming off that injured season. For him to be the bookend with Jalen Ramsey, I don't know, as a depth play to compete, perhaps.
Yeah, I think he can play the outside next to Ramsey because I think the numbers show you that. And if he didn't get hurt, I think you're looking more at the Travarius reward price range. So medicals again with him. I'll let you go to the next guy because I think he's a guy we both think Dolphin fans should keep their eye on. That's Brandon Stevens. Tell them why, Jason.
You're bringing back coordinator Anthony Weaver. He's a couple of years removed from the Ravens coordinator. Stevens had his best year a couple of years ago under Weaver. So this would make complete sense. Now, would it lock down him being that number 2 corner? No pun intended. Perhaps, but there's that instant familiarity, which is a bonus for any new player coming into any situation. Playing for a new coach that's an old coach is, I think, a very good intangible here.
Yeah, and he's a guy had his best year under Weaver, right?
Yeah.
Took a step back last year, was targeted a lot, and the numbers weren't good. He's got size. I think he's like 6'1", 215. Weaver knows him. So you know what? If they go after him, then you know Anthony Weaver was in that room
banging
the table and lobby for him. That if they don't, that'll tell you a lot. Now, he's a little bit of a bargain bin shopping. Maybe you get him at shaving. I get him at 2 for 14, something like that. Or he wants to prove a deal and 1 for 8, right? That allows you're still open. He's good enough to play that second where you feel comfortable, I think, that compete for that second corner. You have a veteran there. It's just not Cam Smith and, and company there. Storm Duck. I know we both don't feel comfortable with either one of those guys lining up. So you can still go out and draft one, sign another one, but he's sort of more the bargain bin shopping. Again, you're going to be surprised. He could get 10 plus million a year, right? Because these guys don't grow on trees, these corners. But I think if Anthony Weaver gives the go on him, you know that Weaver sees something and can use him. This one makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they sign him.
I mean, to me, this is like, if it happens, it's just a no-brainer.
Right.
Absolute no-brainer.
All right. Last guy on the list is kind of a swing. Christian Fulton, a guy who was picked in the second round high for the Titans. Really, I thought had a strong year, had moments for the Chargers last year. Struggled up and down his career, was looking like he was going to bust out, went to the Chargers. I thought he had a strong year. I thought he had some moments last year that showed he could potentially be a starting outside corner in this league. If you can get him sort of a Jordan Brooks kind of deal, right? Or in that $5-6 million range, again, you could still draft one. Like you could do Brandon Stevens and Christian Fulton. Like the 1 year cap hit on year one could be $6 or $7 million for those players combined, right? that's kind of where they got to live here, unless they go, the Wards or the Murphys. But I like Fulton as a young ascending corner. Let's take a shot in this guy.
Not consistently able to put together. I mean, I don't think he's
True.
put together a full season. Maybe considered I hate the word bust, but definitely underachieving. Not necessarily playing up to what his his earlier draft stock was, or mock drafting, or whatever you wanted to project him at. But yeah, I would if I had to choose between Brandon Stevens or Fulton, I would give.
Oh yeah,
Stevens,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, but I think Fulton will be a tick if you can't. If Stevens goes somewhere else for 10, 11 million, and you can get Fulton maybe on a multi-year deal at 5, or he wants a show me deal, 1 for 6, 2 for 12, something like that. The year one cap hit's not gonna be big. And he had really, I'm telling you, he had some stretches as a starter that showed me the little bit I watched of the Chargers that he's coming around. So another guy, just not on the list, but Jeff Okudah. I had, we kind of talked about another guy in that $5 million range, former 3rd overall pick. You want to take a swing? Take a swing, right? He was more a reserve for the Houston Texans. Didn't play much as a corner. I think he only played 15% of their defense. But Okudah's a guy that if you can get a low bargain, maybe Weaver can unlock something. He was a former number 3 pick overall.
This is now we're talking underachieving. Yeah, I mean, if Weaver could unlock this, I'm not putting money on it, per se. But I would stick to another couple names on this draft.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna take a swing, go with one of those top names.
Yeah. All right. Let's quickly wrap up the last position we're going to talk about, the QB2. Not a great group, right? All right, but
like the names before they got in the NFL fields, all of these names were amazing. My God,
this is a 21 draft.
Other than
yeah,
unbelievable.
All right, so let's start at the top with Fields. Do you think Fields is going back to Pittsburgh?
It seemed like they were going to give it a shot, or there was rumblings that they were going to be on the way to putting a deal together. But I don't think Fields would be the guy to bring in for Miami.
Okay. Let me tell you why I like it, all right? And why I want Milroe, right? This kind of athletic quarterback. What do teams do against the Dolphins? They play that too high. What a real running quarterback threat can do to that defense. I'm not just talking about a Tyron Huntley who's, just an okay runner. I'm talking about a guy who can drop 150 yards rushing on you. Imagine Justin Fields. You can't play that too high stuff, right? Because Tua's not running. They know that. That's part of the reason why they can do it. This guy, now, can he get the passing, the system? Can he get the offense, the grasp of the offense? He showed some efficiency with Pittsburgh, but man, it's more of the running threat to kind of take advantage of the way they're playing us.
I mean, that's like asking Fields to be your guy consistently. I think that.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
If that's what you want, Tua is not your guy for that. Clearly, I think that if you're looking at a quarterback in this market, you want a guy who is just it's just going to be a backup who has to come on in for a game, whatever his game is, could pick up the game, could pick up the W. I don't know if they need a different or variant kind of a player to kind of mix things up. You know what I mean? Fields obviously is that guy, but I think that can create unnecessary questions. I mean, I saw who someone said in the chat, Mariota.
Yeah.
That would be a decent fit.
Yeah. I actually had Mariota on the list. Yeah.
You did have him on. I was going to ask.
Yeah, but, and I put Fields on there. Yeah, I've heard Mariota a lot. I don't even want to get into that. I didn't want to put it because I don't want to see that. But Mariota makes a lot of sense, Grizz, because that ethnic background with Tua, they're both share the same kind of vibe. And he's not a threat to Tua. It all fits. Mariota all fits. I just didn't want to put him on there because I don't want him. So that's why I didn't put him on there. Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, no. Listen,
but if you're going to ask me, he has a better shot than 3 or 4 of these names being the Dolphins signing that I put on this list. If you're going to,
I would take Garoppolo if I have to pick a name from this list. Price system is what it is.
Thank you, Frank. Shout out to Frank. Thank you for joining us. Everybody, hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell for us. We're on the on season here. We're about to get into the edge rushers. We're wrapping up. the free agency preview that starts on Monday. Jason and myself and Jason Sarney here on the on season. All right, quickly, I'll let you talk about you want a perfect fit. I'll let you talk about the next guy, a former Tua teammate, Mac Jones.
I don't know about a perfect fit here, but that would be that would blow up.
It makes sense though, man. It makes a lot of sense.
Oh man, what a crazy full circle story that would be. But something about relying on the fact that if Mac Jones is coming in for a game with the Dolphins, I don't think I want to be in that universe. I don't know if I want to be in that.
I like him better than a lot of these guys, though. I mean, look, Mac is familiar with Tua, has been the backup, and he fits this offense. Mac does some of those things, the quick passing things like Tua does. Like Mac, I think he would. You don't think he'd be a fit under this offense, or are you just you're not a fan?
I'm not a fan of Mac. Like
okay.
I'm not a fan of Mac. I was surprised when there was that initial hype on him. He's going to be on multiple. He's going to be averaging a team a year pretty much.
Yeah. So, I think he's one of my favorites for them to sign, but he's your Marcus Mariota, so I should have not had him on this list. So
fair enough.
You got Mac, I got Mariota. Cancel him. Drew Lock.
Cancel him out.
Quickly, Drew Lock. Not a fan. He is.
He's got that moxie. You like that?
He's got a little swag, a little gunslinger to him. If you strike out and you end up, a 1 year, $5 million with Drew Lock, you could do worse, right?
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Garoppolo, we've been speaking. Garoppolo is probably the most perfect fit, right? Veteran. Now, but the problem with Garoppolo, you're going to have two guys with injury histories at the quarterback. That's the whole point. You're going to your third quarterback.
Ideal world,
you're going to your third quarterback.
Correct. In an ideal, well, this is why it would be cool if the Dolphins draft a quarterback with one of their 10 picks, so you have Tua, veteran, and then a guy who, if God forbid the veteran gets hurt,
maybe an Alabama athletic quarterback.
You're on these Alabama quarterbacks. Can you imagine that trio of Alabama quarterbacks?
How about we do this? We do Tua, Mac,
and Jalen Moreau on a practice squad. Yeah, right.
Are you quitting the on season after that?
I'm quitting football if that happens. If they bring back an Alabama trio room, that would be crazy.
All right, last guy, Trey Lance. Interesting. Like wait a minute. As the third guy, Zach Wilson and him, let's put them together. To me, that's you don't draft if you don't want to draft the quarterback this year, Wilson or Lance as your third guy. You could do work like there's some upside there. I'm not counting on these guys, but maybe McDaniel let him. He's the quarterback guru. Like he fixed Tua. Let's see what he can do with a Zach Wilson as a Lance, not as the backup. Again, as the third quarterback, developmental, probably better than a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. It's a bad QB draft. Again, these guys are a different kind of level for me, not as relying as quarterback too. But like if you signed Garoppolo, he got hurt and you had to go to Lance or Wilson, like it's not bad. Better than Skyler or
Well, all due respect to Skyler Thompson, like you get what you pay for. Seventh round quarterback, an undrafted type of a quarterback. All due respect, Tyler Huntley, you get what you pay for. That being said, this list is flooded with first round failures, so a quarterback.
I like me some first round failures.
But there is that redemption aspect quality. Everyone's so happy with Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? So do I like Zach Wilson? Do I like Trey Lance? No. But do I like Lance over Wilson? I'll say I do. I take Lance over Wilson. But
I'd probably go there too. I'd probably lean to it. All right.
Gun to head, yeah.
So it'll be interesting Monday. The tampering period started. It'll be interesting where they go. Maybe they sign a couple of these guys. Again, there's plenty more guys on the list. These are just some guys that we thought to get you ready, kind of give you a primer of some of the guys we thought they'd be looking at these important positions. All right, let's move on to the draft part. Let's go to the edge group real quick. We mentioned with Bradley Chubb that coming back, is it less likely they go edge in round one? Maybe. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, there's injury history on that side of Phillips and Chubb. Chubb didn't play at all last year. We don't know what he's going to look like. And another Phillips injury, major injury, lower body injury last year. He's going to come back. He's a hell of a fighter. He works hard to come back. I have no doubt. But still, I wouldn't put it out of the realm that they take one of these guys because there's a few guys at 13 that we're going to talk about that are really good football players. So let's jump into it. Let's start. We're gonna go real quick. Abdul Carter, no shot, right? Number one player in the draft. Electric burst, electric off the edge. Question with him is going to be the foot injury. I think the biggest question, real quick, is do you think this drops him any, or do you think more likely he goes 1 if the Titans keep the pick, or if they trade down to 3, he kind of drops the floor is 3 for Abdul Carter? But I mean, he's crazy. I mean, he's probably the number one player in this draft.
If you could draft the next Micah Parsons, who could be better than Micah Parsons, I think you draft him. You know,
he actually moved from linebacker to edge with Chop Robinson left. So
if he could be a top tier defensive player for years to come, and the Titans have conviction to make him the number 1 pick, you do it. If a team thinks that way and wants to trade up for him, that wouldn't, shock me either. If the Titans, they should make him the number 1 pick if they believe he's that generational. But even with the injury, because you shelf him, and then a couple of games into the season or whenever he comes back, he's exactly what you paid for.
Yeah. And guys, if you're anywhere else but YouTube, come join us. Come on here and join us and hit that subscribe and like button. We really appreciate it. We're breaking down the Edge group now. Let's go on to another guy, Jalen Walker. All right, so this guy, you mentioned Micah Parsons. This guy kind of had the Micah Parsons kind of label to him. I think it stops there. I don't see that. I don't see the pass rush repertoire that Micah Parsons. Now, this guy is a bowling ball of explosiveness, okay? The question with him is, right, he's got tremendous bend, power, great change of direction. The question with him is he played edge in 23. They moved him to linebacker in 24. Where does he play, right? Is he an off or on ball? Will linebacker who blitzes a lot? I think he's a guy you maybe play a stack linebacker early downs, and late down pass rush downs come off the edge, because that's what he does best. He explodes for the quarterback. The only question for me at linebacker, Jason, is they didn't ask him to drop back in coverage a lot last year, and probably because his best is going at the quarterback. But I wonder why didn't they want him to drop back? He does have the athletic ability. He didn't test at the combine. The instincts of a linebacker. Do you see him more of an edge player, or would you put him at the, let's say an off-ball linebacker and just blitz?
Yeah, they're saying off-ball linebacker with the speed and explosiveness. Probably that would be the best play. And as a pass rusher, as a sack artist, he improved every year. In his 3 years with Georgia, there was a progression there. So listen, he's a guy that the Dolphins. I mean,
he's tremendous. He's a tremendous player.
He's a hell of a football player.
Yeah, you tell me you took him at 13. He's probably a top 10 player in this draft.
Correct.
Like, I'm not letting guys who've been hurt. This is what we're talking about here.
Versatility, speed. Could it be immediate? Could it be immediate 10 sack production? Maybe not. We saw obviously, but he's a guy that it would not be a shocking BPA scenario.
Yeah.
At 13.
Yeah.
He could very well be the BPA 10.
Yeah. He could go top 7, 8. You know. I mean, to me, I like the idea of playing him a little stack linebacker in early downs and just send him off in late. I mean, he's versatile, like you said, has gotten better. I would have absolutely no problem at 13. I don't care about that's when you go BPA. All right, next guy. Well, this guy's troubling for me, okay? So, James Pierce, I'm sure you guys watched the combine. And easy speed, man. It's like a pitcher who throws a fastball and it's just easy gas. This kid wakes out of bed, runs 4.48. Like, he's that guy. Unbelievable length, 6'5", 245, explosive first step, right? But here's the problem. He's a linear player. Like, there's not a lot of bend to him, right? So what do I do there, right? He's just this ball of clay at 6'5", 245, who gets to the quarterback without great bend, really does it with speed. He likes to stand. To me, he's an outside stand-up rusher. I put him as a 3-4 linebacker. Let him go wide, set up the tackle wide, and convert that speed to power. That's where he really excels. Like, for a linear guy, he pushes tackles back with that speed to power due to his length. But I will say this: he's a guy in 4 years from now could be a top 5 player in this draft, or 4 years from now could be off your roster, right? He's a risk. He'll be there at 13. Not the physical traits won't entice you, but I think he's a guy who's going to go back half of the first round, more 15 to 32. He's a home run swing. Your thoughts, James Pierce, Jason?
The combine obviously put his name a little bit higher on the boards, definitely made him some money. Pure pass rusher, kind of has a good combination of size, smart, speed. Do the Dolphins draft him at 13? I don't think that would be a home run. I think it would be a question mark with potential, but I don't think that's what you want to do at 13. You see a guy like a Jalen Walker, that he's going to be a home run football player.
Yeah.
You know, that's who you pick at 13.
There's a couple guys here I'd rather have than him.
Exactly. I mean, I like what he did at the combine. I like the potential as a potent pass rusher.
Yeah, you like him a lot.
The Dolphins drafted a potent pass rusher with potential last year.
I think something. If they do, and we'll talk about a few guys coming up here. If they do draft an edge, I want a guy who's got size, edge setter, kind of. Yeah, you know what, Grizz?
Oh,
excellent point. Body type. When you saw Deion Jordan at the combine, this guy's a lobby room player. You fall in love with him. Somebody's going to take a chance on him in the first round. Because there's not many guys that do.
That's what you
look
said.
Like
take a chance. I don't want to take a chance. I'll take a chance in the third, fourth, fifth round. Yeah. I don't want to take a chance in 13.
I agree. All right. I don't think you'll be but I didn't think they'd take Chop. I just, if they're going to take an edge, I think it's going to be more size and more versatile. Can do a little bit of both. And
I know we're talking like 8 pick difference, but in the 20s, I'll take that. But 13, in the teens, you got to hit. You got to hit.
And so I talked about a guy I just talked about. This is more of the edge I think the Dolphins would look at. That's Mikael Williams out of Georgia. All right, here's the thing about this kid, Jason, and I'll tell you straight up.
Please.
When he makes impact on the offensive lineman, he moves them. He gets his initial pop and power is impressive, right? Like you see certain guys when they make contact with the lineman, the lineman jolt back. He's one of these guys. Everything this kid does, Jason, is with power. Okay, he's excellent at setting the edge. He's a run defender. He's got the size. I mean, look, 2'5", 260. Scheme versatile. You want to put him in third and 12. Put him next to Sealer, a little 3 tech. He's got the size and strength. All right. He's an upright player though. He's not a bendy kind of. He's not like Walker or the guys we're going to talk about here. He's more of an upright. He plays real upright. He relies again on the power more than the speed, but he's a good athlete. He's a guy who will complement Chop really well. He's more that bigger edge, kind of like similar to Jalen Phillips. So if you're looking for some insurance there, I watched the FSU tape. He dominated FSU in 23. Like put on that tape and that film, he played hurt last year. So he looked a little bit slower last year. So it could be because of that injury. He's a guy who'll be in that 10 to 20 range. He's going to be in there, but I like him as a fit. Especially, I will say this, especially if Chubb wasn't coming back, I definitely say this guy. But still, as an insurance policy, again, could fall BPA at 13.
I mean, if you look at BPA, if you're looking for talent, he's a tremendously powerful run stopper. You mentioned that. I think last year, 1 out of every 3 of his hits or of his tackles were for loss.
Yep.
So he is an impact
in the
player. He's correct. It's not like you don't need necessarily 12 sacks if you're a guy who's going to 1 out of every 3 times create -2, -3 for a running back.
When he makes contact on point, he's got the lineman back,
Right.
And that's where he is. He plays there and he sets the edge of the run. And to me, he's a conventional 4-3 end. He'd fit perfect in this defense. Perfect. Will they take one? I think he'd be one they look at, though, right? More than a Pierce.
More than a Pierce, for darn sure. Darn sure.
Let's move on to the next guy. I had Dante Cullinelli on Monday, and he's his favorite guy for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Favorite guy. He didn't care about Chubb or anybody coming back. Okay. You want to start with this physical freak? Or you want me to?
Look, South Florida kid, physical freak, absolute monster motor. I don't think you have to necessarily look at the stats here. They don't jump off the page. The pressures do. The pressures and presence over statistics and sacks. You know what I mean? But this kid could be unfreaking leashed. Especially if you're teaming him up on a line with Zach. So a lot of people are not mocking this position in the first round. in this Dolphin community. And I'm not necessarily one of those people mocking this position, but if he's the pick at their team, show me a person to be upset.
No.
As from there's no reason for him to be upset because he could be an absolute game havoc changer.
I mean, here's the thing with this guy. People say, I know a lot of people, he's a risk. He's not a risk player. He is an excellent run defender. He's almost 270. Okay. Remember I mentioned James Pierce could be out of the league in 4 years or one of the top 5 players in this draft. This guy could be one of the top 5 players in this draft. If not, I got a good run defender edge player playing at 270. Maybe he goes up a weight at 275. If you look at this guy, it's you're going to fall in love with him. All right. He's a raw prospect. He doesn't have the production. Remember, we're going to talk about his teammate here next, Scorton. He played on the line with Scorton and Shamar Turner. 2 other guys, what a line they had, are going to get drafted in the first 2 rounds this year. He is just physical. I mean, he's just a specimen, man. Like, I like his floor. I like his upside. I mean, 270 pounds, he ran 4.59, jumped over 40 inches. I mean, I know Greer probably loves this kid, right? What do you think? Do you think he's someone? Do you think there's a realistic shot they would actually take Stewart if he even gets there?
As I mentioned earlier, yeah, I have to say that it's a realistic shot because he's that good of a player. And if the Dolphins should really go best player available here. You know, 10 picks in the top 13 team with that first pick. I think every position on the field could be in play except maybe 2.
Yeah.
For Chris Greer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make an argument.
Yeah. I think people are writing off because Chubb's coming back that the Dolphins are in a sweet spot in this draft. A lot of good players are going to be there. When I think of this guy, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Chubb thing with the way that his contract is working, and I'm not rooting for this. If he doesn't come back to form and he does nothing, it essentially costs the Dolphins nothing. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they should not address this position at all. Does it mean that they address it in the first? I mean, look, if you draft a guy like a Stewart, if you draft one of these top end guys, and then for whatever reason, rotationally, Chubb is still eating, I pay for that. That means that something's working, So I wouldn't. The Chubb thing is very interesting to me.
It popped up the day before we did this. We said wow, but then we thought about it more and said it's still a possibility.
It is still possible. Dude, it doesn't take this position off the board at all.
Look what the Eagles did. You can never have any guys going to that the quarterback. That's the key. That's the kryptonite for elite quarterbacks is pass rush. And look, we didn't have a ton of it, and we don't know what Jalen Phillips looks like. We don't know what Bradley Chubb looks like. We hope, you know what I mean, but. It's kind of like Tua. We got a plan for them not being here part of the year. And you want to know something about him? We're going to talk about Membo a lot when we get to the linemen. And Membo is a guy we think is at play at 13. He's one of our favorite linemen. Watch him push Membo back. Watch his tape versus Missouri. If anybody who's watching, get a chance. Membo had his own on him, but when it comes to pop and push and power against him, and that's against the top guy we're going to talk about.
And another thing to just keep in mind, and when you're drafting in the first round, and I know the Dolphins have had a couple of times, they did not, so you don't really think this way, but you got to think of that potential of the 5th year, so you're not drafting for next year. You're not saying, all right, cool, we're bringing back a veteran, so we don't need this position. Don't think that way. If you can get a guy who maybe not as a rookie, but years 2, 3, 4, 5 have control and then extend him for a second contract, this doesn't happen extremely often. But if you have a chance to do that, I honestly don't care what position it is.
Get the best players in the building, figure it out. All right. That's how I look at it.
You know what? That's actually true. That really is what it should be.
The Eagles do that. They had Jalen Reagor, they get Jordan Davis, physical freaks, violent up front. We're going to get as many of them as we can. Beat us.
Figure it out.
And figure it out. All right. Exactly. Let's get to his teammate, Nick Scorton. All right. Here's the difference. This guy's not as athletic as him, but out of all the guys in that line, he probably has the most polished pass rush moves. He's not as good against the run as those guys, but he's as versatile. He's 6'3", almost 260. I like his pass rush potential. Right now, I think Stewart probably has more upside in the pass rush game. But remember, this kid's only 20. He's not as good against the run as Stewart. All right. And his burst and athleticism is not in the level of a Stewart. But scheme versatile, only 20, and the rush tools are there even more than Stewart. He kind of gives you a mix of everything scored. And I like him a lot. He's a guy I would say back into the first round, playoff team, even early second.
Yeah, had a 10-sack season. The guy's got the physical tools.
Yep.
I love the spin move. I love a refined, good spin move. It was my favorite move to play in basketball. A beautiful.
I missed that. I'm glad you the spin move. He played. I watched him against Will Campbell, who's going to be top 10 guy. What worked was that spin move. That inside spin move worked on Campbell. And if it works on Campbell, we think it's going to be a high-level tackle. It can work. 10 sacks, he's more productive than for example, a Stewart, right? Stewart's got the tools. And Stewart's I actually think Stewart has a better floor than this guy, actually. It's weird because everybody thinks Stewart's like the high upside guy, but he's not as good against the run. But I'm not as worried, Jason, because he's got size, he's got raw strength. He's not going to blow you away with the speed, but he gets there. He's got pass rush repertoire more than anybody on that Texas A&M defensive line. And again, teams look at when they're only 20 years old. They're still growing. 3 years from now in the league, they're 23. He might be weighing at 270. This kid can add 15 pounds easy. So again, move him up and down the line a little bit. I like Scorton. I would go Stewart just based on the potential.
Well, yeah.
But if you're picking 25 and you got to settle for Scorton, you're doing yourself. If you are, I don't know, Kansas City, if you are Detroit, or whoever's picking that background.
If he becomes an Eagle.
An Eagle, right? You could do
adding
worse.
good players.
Yeah, love him. All right, let's move on to Mike Green.
I mean, absolute freak.
Yeah,
absolute freak, sack leader. I love his comp. I read that he's a comp to an Alex Highsmith, and Alex Highsmith is one of my favorite players in the league, non-Dolphin. And he could have that exact trajectory. Smaller school. Highsmith went to I think Charlotte, but I think Green is going to be an absolute violent sack master.
Yeah. He led FBS.
Highlight inducing sacks.
Yeah. You don't get 17 sacks for no reason, right? Where you play. He's a guy, understands tempo, understands the cadence and timing of the pass rush, really skilled. Again, you said you love Alex Smith. Why is he comped to Alex Smith? He plays with aggression. The motor doesn't stop. Now, there is a blemish on his record. Okay, we can't go without mentioning. In 2022, he left the Virginia program, and there was reports of, I don't know if it was a battery charge, something. I don't want to get into it because I'm not here to slander anybody's name. The kid deserves a chance like everybody else. You make mistakes at 20 years old, okay, or 19 years old. So there's that blemish. There's going to be, you got to look at the character background, things teams are going to look at. But again, we've seen guys come in the league with perfect clean records and the ones doing the worst things, aka Deshaun Watson, right? The good guy. So you never know really, but you have to mention the thing that happened at 22. But unbelievable pass rush skill. Like he's got everything in the bag, uses his hands well. He's got the outside spin move that works. Like that's his go-to. But he can do the swipe move, everything. Club. He's got it all in the bag. I like him a lot. Not for the Dolphins, though. I need somebody with a little more edge shedding if I'm going board. He's more in that Chop Robinson size. He lacks the arm length and the body mass, so he affects him versus the run. But again, if you're looking for somebody to get to the quarterback and who's not, and you're in the back half of I would actually say he might go 12 to right where the Dolphins are, 12 to 17 range. That's where Mike Green's area is going to live because you don't get these guys that have this kind of pass rush skill, kind of like a Leatu Latu last year who went 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. I kind of see that range for him. Skilled pass rusher, understands tempo. And if anybody doesn't understand what that is, it's the timing. Something that Chop Robinson got better at last year was understanding the timing and the tempo of how to rush. This kid has those skills. Love him. Again, if you need, who doesn't need a guy who can get to the quarterback at elite level, right?
Indeed. I just, again, don't think he's the right guy for the Dolphins. I agree with you there, but
now everybody's going to talk about the Senior Bowl. when he had that one play, the pancake.
I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
And then he walked up the field.
Pancake. I think it was a little unfair. People who were there said it wasn't quite like that, but go check out on YouTube or on social media. You'll find it. Him pancake blocking Josh Carnley, who's going to be he's going to be a first round pick as well. So we had a great Senior Bowl. A lot of these guys I forget to mention were in the Senior Bowl and had great weeks. But yeah, Mike Green. Don't know about the Dolphins, but he'll be in that range there.
Yeah.
All right, another guy. 16 and a half sacks, not 17. All right, so let me explain something. I first didn't get it with this kid, right? Like when they said watch the tape on Ezeruco, I didn't get it. As I watched more, I understood what he's really good at and how good of a skill of a pass rusher he is. Again, in the ACC, he got 16 and a half sacks. What stands out, if you are going to watch tape and the top of the rush arc, which means when they're turning that corner, he has an uncanny ability to dip and get underneath leverage. It's a skill, and it wins most of the time. I seen him. Who are the two tackles that I saw him play against? I was trying to look it up against, was it FSU? Ezeruco? I have my notes here. Ezeruco. Yeah, FSU. Now, the two tackles he played against are not like they weren't elite guys or guys probably going to be undrafted free agents, but like what he did to them, he dominated that game. And man, the more you watch of him, Jason, the more you understand how good of a player he's going to be.
Technically sound, good arsenal of moves. He's got the length. Comp to Yannick Ngakoue.
Perfect comp.
You know, so I if he slides to the third round, you know what I mean? Second round. He's probably a second round guy.
He's somebody you're looking at. If you're lucky,
is he a first round guy?
He's a late first. You're lucky he gets to 48.
Yeah.
If he got to 48, I probably have to do it. You know, undersized though. He's not a guy again at the point of attack or setting edge on the outside. He's not overly explosive. Like he's not this guy who closes and is just. He's not. He's only 6'2", 247. He's like Mike. Go ahead.
No, we also have to know that there is also, as we haven't mentioned, the Muhammad Kamara last year that they drafted. Remember, they doubled up on edge rush. I mean, that's a guy who's like another underside guy.
Yeah.
Who could,
him and I put these guys next to each other because they're probably pure pass rushers, probably with their skill and repertoire, probably the best in this class. Ezeruco and Mike Green. Second round, maybe. I mean, again, I didn't love him at first. I liked him more. It happens with players. I liked him more as I watched. All right, let's quickly move on here to. All right, so Jack Sawyer. Here's the thing with Jack Sawyer. There's going to be guys who look better, test better, are fancier. But you want a football player that plays with power and just aggression and knows when the moment's big. I think I read on the last 4 games to get to the title game, he had 4.5 sacks and 6 pass deflection. He understands the moment.
The comp is heartbreaking here.
What is it?
It's Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean,
is that your comp or is that your comp?
It's like my comp. It's like a long linebacker with a high motor who's an absolute, game changer when he is on, when he is present. He had a hell of a playoff, he's not the exact same player, of course, but
I think Van Ginkel's a little more athletic.
Yeah, Van Ginkel's definitely a little more athletic, probably faster. But instinctually, as you say, he's got great instincts, just a football type, that motor, the height.
Yeah. 6'4", 260. He's not gonna blow you away with the tools, Jason. But he's gonna give that offensive tackle all he wants. You better bring your lunchbox. He's gonna bring it. All right. He's that kind of guy. He gives them fits, powerful in the run game. And I think he's gotten better every year rushing the passer. Like he's getting better. Late first, second, and like second round. I don't know if he makes it there, but I wouldn't hate it. I think he's a perfect compliment to Chop Robinson, right? Everything that Chop doesn't do well, this guy does well. So, Jack Simon, do I think he'll be a Dolphin? No, but I think he's an excellent football player. And sometimes we fall in love with traits, and he's the exact example of put on the tape, man. He's nonstop, and he helps you win games, right? And you can't say that about everybody. All right, last guy we're going to talk about, Landon Jackson. Great combine.
Yeah.
My friend Dante Collinelli, who I had on, called him a railroad player. A railroad player. He can only go in one direction. All right. That's Landon Jackson. And I thought it was such a great comp that I had to steal it from him. He's just a 6'6", 260-pound, long, strong, edge-setting end. You know what I mean? That's what he is. Has some, uses a cross drop to get to the quarterback. Doesn't have great bend. Not a speedy, bursty, change of direction guy. Just one of these long, strong 6'6" guys who set the edge for you, right? Third round, I got a third-round grade on him. 98 if he's there, sign me up. I know he had a good combine, jumped over 40 inches. Had a good, but still didn't change my opinion of him. But yeah, a guy, I call him a long, strong edge.
No,
with long arms.
Definitely one of the, if you had to put like 15 combine winners, he's in that group.
He's in it.
For sure. Second round, maybe? Yeah, I mean, not for the Dolphins.
Late second, third, I would say with him. Combine probably pushed him up 5 or 10 spots, maybe. Again, guys, guys don't jump rounds at this point. These guys have been doing this. They know what these players are, right? A 40-time point, whatever, up or down, is not going to change guys around. It happens very rarely. There's an exception to the rule now, but very rarely. I think you're more looking at up 5, 10 spots, not a round or two. Would you agree with that, Jason?
I would say, yeah. I mean, there's like 5% of the draft might have 5% of selections are multiple round spikes.
Yeah.
They're 3-1, 2-1, 4-2,
Yeah.
That's rare. But
that's
as you
rare.
said, to go up a dozen spots, to go up 20 spots, that's a little bit more tolerable. But
good high floor player. Just what you look at him and see him is what he is, right? Really good edge setter. His length and strength, he'll get to the quarterback. Like, he has some moves, just not overly, he's not a quick twitch speed guy, but I think he's a guy that actually in the third, if he made it there, I told you, he's a guy that would fit a need there for the Dolphins. I love 6'6", 270, easy. 280, he could play, probably get into. So yeah, you never know. All right, so that wraps up the edge group. Overall, good group. Do we think the Dolphins take one at 13? Probably not. But again, out of all those ones we talked about, who's your favorite there? Is it Shamar Stewart?
It's Shamar Stewart. Yeah, I mean,
if Walker fell, yeah, Jalen Walker fell, but I think I agree with my man Dante Collinelli. Shamar Stewart would be my favorite there at 13.
If there was a surprise, like the draft, it changes. Every pick, it changes. If a trade comes up, if a team wants to go up and go select their guy, and everything gets trickled down and moves down and draft a slot or two, if Stewart falls on their lap, especially if they don't bring in other people on the edge and on the line, this next couple of weeks, if they know that that's going to be a need further, that would be a blessing of a pick with so much potential that it's probably would end up being one of the highest upside picks for any team, regardless of any roster spot on the team.
Couldn't agree more. I've always said, get the best players in the building. Like I said,
it has to be.
Figure it out. It could be a sleeper position. Is it one of the top 2 or 3 I think they'll target? No, but definitely a sleeper position, like you said, and one with some upside. All right, we didn't anticipate going an hour and 18 minutes, but we wanted to give you guys some free agent options. We wanted to give you the edge group. Next week, Jason, we're going with what group? What's the big group that everybody's waiting for? Tell them, Jason.
You know it. It's the investment episode. It's offensive line. Can't wait. I cannot wait.
Can't wait. And Wednesday we might have a surprise draft comp.
An actual offensive lineman on the show, maybe?
Who might have been at the combine. We'll see. If it happens, we'll announce it on Twitter. But next week, join us on the on-season. We're going to preview the offensive line. Of course, that's the Dolphins. Everybody has their eye in that position, and it's a big group, a group that we might be seeing at pick 13. Guys, everybody in the chat, Grizz, Frank, Evan, everybody who joined and watched on YouTube or wherever, please, again, hit that bell. It takes a second to subscribe to the channel, and catch us next week on the on-season on Thursdays at 8 p.m. where we'll be doing the offensive line. Plus, we might have a surprise little interview on Wednesday as well. All right, guys, thank you. As always, we are out.